good afternoon, and welcome to another lunch with leaders and legends. We have an awesome leader that is joining us today. It's more like breakfast with leaders and legends for him because he's out in the great state of California. But I'd love to introduce to you Mike Stone, who is the coordinator, the VAPA, the Visual and Performing Arts Coordinator at Bakersfield City School Districts in California. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here, Rick.
Yeah, I've had the privilege of knowing Mike for a number of years when I covered that territory, and have observed his fine work both up close and from afar. And I just feel like he's one of the great leaders in education today. Has been very involved in state conferences, national conferences, and just does amazing work in his own school district. So I thought, who better than to have on as one of our guests? So Mike, welcome, and tell us a little bit about your background, because I know you started as a band director, but you've touched so many great things in your career.
Well, first, Rick, I want to thank you and the education team at Consumer, because when I, as a music supervisor, need support for PD, for professional development, I know I can call you and you will find the right clinician. And it's just really great to see that the music industry in our country really supports teachers in this kind of way. So thank you to Consumer for having me today. My background in music education started in 1989 when I was hired at Chipman Junior High School as band and orchestra director. And I was there about 15 years. And as many of us in our profession, I kind of got an itch to do something a little bit different after about 10 years. And so I got my administrative credential. The rest is history. I've been a music supervisor in the same school district where I taught for now about 20 more years. So it's been a great ride. I love the work that I do. I'm a people person. I enjoy being around people and helping my teachers. That's one of the things that I really enjoy. So that's a little bit about me professionally.
Well, and it's very obvious. If you're Facebook friends with Mike Stone, you know that he is always in classrooms, at events, and very inspiring. Tell us a little bit about some of the big committee work that you've done and the organizations that you've been a lead in, and yeah.
Sure. Well, leadership, Rick, to me, I believe in servant leadership. And by serving, you always get more out of that arrangement than you give into it, I have found. So back as a first-year teacher, someone asked me to be the newsletter editor for our local Kern County Music Educators newsletter. And that was a lot of fun. I learned a lot, but I mostly got to meet people out of my fishbowl, if you will, and other educators in the community whom I would have never known had I not gotten involved in being a servant leader even at that time. And from there, I've had the privilege of serving in a lot of other roles in California as CMEA president, California Band Directors president, and I currently serve on the National Executive Board for NAFME, our National Association, of course, for Music Education. And I'm president-elect of Western Division and will be president in about a year and a half now. Looking forward to that service as well. One last thing I've been involved with, and it pertains to the MAC, of course, is that I was chair of the Council of Music Program Leaders for 2 years, serving NAFME in that capacity. And now Anna Marie Bolino, who is a wonderful leader, has taken on that responsibility as I transition to be on the NEB. So that's a little bit about myself professionally.
That's awesome. Well, and I think you probably summed up my next question about what type of leader are you. I do know you as a servant leader, and I'll do a really quick plug. We have an organization that's rather new that we're supporting called SLAM, the Servant Leadership Association for Music. And it's to help develop directors into people like you, Mike, to help people understand the importance of servant leadership. And this is Dr. Tim Leisenheiser, our senior VP of education. This is sort of his brainchild, and he's a wonderful servant leader himself. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that's so important. in how you move people forward. So can you be a little bit more specific in your role as a leader, and how you think your teachers see you as a leader?
So that's a great question. How do the teachers see my leadership? I hope that they would respond that they see me as someone who is there to support them in their work. I am not a micromanager, and I think we've all worked with people who are micromanagers at some point in our lives, and it just simply doesn't work. I've been very driven in my work by a book by Dale Carnegie called, you probably are familiar with it. It's the book How to Win Friends and Influence People, and it was written in 1936. And probably a decade ago or so, a colleague gave me the book, and I was teaching at Cazadero Music Camp up in Sonoma one summer. And every afternoon, I read that book. I had it done in about 6 days. And it's the premise of the book is that you never want to be a leader who criticizes, and you also want to give empowerment to those who work with you to be able to take ownership of what they want. What is it that they want in their work? If you can find a leader who will support someone in that way, you'll find things will really change. And I'll give you an example, Rick. We have a young teacher I hired a few years ago to do an elementary general music position, and the focus had been show choir for many years. And this gentleman came out of Hollywood and had kind of a music production background. And over the course of several years, I said, go with your passion. Let's evolve this program. If show choir is not going to be the focus, we'll keep that going, but we also want to add other things. And this teacher yesterday presented a modern band performance that was just phenomenal. You're my Facebook friend, so you probably saw the
I did
photos.
see it.
And so my philosophy is that if someone has a passion for mariachi or a passion for modern band, give them the tools they need to get that work done and jump in there. I also believe a little phrase of my friend James Mazzaferro. Jim is the former camp director at Cazadero Performing Arts Camp where I worked for years, and he's the model leader in my mind. And he always says, "There's no problem, there's only solutions." And that a little adage has become popular in my office here in the department, because when something gets a little stressful for the staff, I always say, there are no problems, only solutions. How can I help? One of the Carnegieisms that I think is brilliant in his book is that he asks you to ask more questions rather than tell people what you think. And, as leaders, we're all type A personalities in some way, shape, or form, but I try to be a better listener. And I've had to work on that. I tend to sometimes not listen as well as I should, but I'm working on that. And I think that's key too in leadership. So remember, no problems, only solutions.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I like the ask more questions. I know you juggle a lot of balls. And so what are your responsibilities in the school district?
One thing that colleagues often are surprised about is when I tell them that about 30% of my job is outside of the arts. One of the things that I do in that 30% of my time is coordinate district events. And I am responsible for the district academic pentathlon. In administration, you were a music supervisor, Rick. It's called duties as assigned.
Yes.
So every once in a while, there'll be something new come along the road. And Mike, would you take that? Sure. Whatever I can do to serve and help our children is what I do. But oral language festivals, spelling bee, some speech contests, things of that sort, I really enjoy doing. And then the other 70% of my work in the district is to lead the team, to supervise itinerant teachers and evaluate them, make sure that we recruit and retain the best music educators here in Bakersfield. And if a teacher needs something, my philosophy is that I'll do whatever I can to get it for them. And fortunately, I know we're going to talk a little bit about Proposition 28 here in California, but we have truly been blessed to have a lot of funding to do innovative things in California. That has been a goal as well.
Whoops.
Oh, Rick,
I muted myself because there weren't supposed to be dogs in this restaurant, but for some reason there were some. So yeah, I apologize for my my mutts there. So yeah, let's go right into the Prop 28. Such a huge success for your state. Give us a little synopsis of what that's going to look like.
Well, Rick, I'll tell you, in my 30 some years in arts education, music education, I have never seen something like this. It's really, truly unprecedented in California history. We have never in California had discrete funding for arts education. It's all been determined at the local school board level. And our legislature and governors past have really never addressed the inequities of funding for the arts in California. So a gentleman named Austin Butner, who was the LAUSD, Los Angeles Unified School District superintendent, he retired, I think, a year and a half ago. He had this idea that I'm going to do this as my project. I want to do a proposition on our ballot in California. It's our initiative process in California to fully fund arts education, or make it a lot better, I should say, because I don't know that we'll ever be fully funded, right? It costs money to have arts education. But his idea was to have attorneys draft the law that would change permanently our state constitution to require between $800 million and $1 billion annually from our state budget be dedicated discrete spending in arts education. And the great news is that it happened. It was enacted this past month in November at our state election. It'll be certified, I believe, December 12th. And this will kick in for the 23-24 school year. And so we're all eagerly waiting for all of the FAQs and other documents from the Department of Education, but we know it's coming. And myself, I have the plan here in Bakersfield ready to go. I'm getting it vetted now. Hopefully we'll get approval very soon so we can begin the hiring process. And I think significant, Rick, is this is not one-time money like the ESSER's dollars we've talked about. This will be forever, because our Constitution is now permanently amended. Unless there would be another initiative to change that, it will consistently provide this money for our schools. I would also mention that brilliant in Mr. Butner's language in the initiative is that 80% must be expended on staffing. That would be certificated positions or classified positions. The other 19%, and about 19% will be for professional development, curriculum development, all of those kinds of things, supplies and equipment, and only 1% can be used for administration. So the district can't take all this money and hire administrators. It's meant to be at the schools to hire teachers to implement arts education. I think that's probably the greatest attribute of how this was written for our state.
Well, congratulations to you and all of our colleagues in California. That's a long time in coming, and it sounds like California is going to be hiring a lot of teachers.
You know, Rick, this is my my assistant superintendent catches me every once in a while in the hallway, and she'll say, "How are we going to find these people?" And I said to her, "We can build it, and they will come." And I really do truly believe that that is the success that we will have over time. Fortunately, if we can start hiring early in January or February, that will really help us get ahead of the curve. But it is going to be the biggest challenge. And I would just share a little bit about the plan that is yet not approved in my district, but that is, I think, what we will be doing here. Most school districts in California do not have foundational arts learning in the lower grades, thinking kindergarten, first and second grade. We don't have general music specialists. Now, there are some exceptions to this. Some districts have had that for years. But this money in my own world will provide that foundational learning. I'm looking at an arts integration model for K1 and 2 and hiring maybe 15, 16 teachers who will be able to implement our California state standards with those lower grades. And that program that I saw with Modern Band yesterday out at an elementary school included general music built around ukulele in the K1 and 2 grades. And those children performed as well at this, what was called a Music Makers event.
Nice.
And so that's what we'll be able to, in Bakersfield City School District, over time, put into our lower grades so that when the kids get to 4th, 5th grade and start instruments and singing and choirs, they will actually be literate in the arts, and not only music, but dance, theater, and visual arts, because there will be components in all of those content areas as per our state education code. This money will go so far. So that's
I
just a
already,
little tidbit.
I already see a future invitation for Mike Stone to come back and tell us what's happened with all this.
Fair enough. Yes. And I will say that I am confident that we will be enacting the plan. It may not be as full blown at the beginning just because of the staffing issues you mentioned, Rick. But yes, I'd be more than happy to do that. And my friends in California who are music supervisors, we're all going to be sharing what we're doing. There is two caveats. This is exciting. There must be a public posting, a public report annually of how the monies were spent. So
Oh,
that's great. We have accountability. And number two, we cannot supplant existing spending for the visual and performing arts. So right now, the budget in my school district that I oversee is about 3.5 million. I'm looking at adding between 4.7 and 5.2 million dollars annually on top of that 3
wow.
million dollars. This is going to be a big administrative task to oversee the funding, make sure that it's spent as Mr. Buettner's initiative intended it to be
Yeah.
spent.
And maybe some other states can figure out how to do that as well.
Absolutely. And I would just end on Proposition 28 by stating that fact, Rick. The reason I mention all of this to folks who may be in other states, your state may very well have an initiative process or a proposition process where citizens can come up with a solution and put it on the ballot and get it passed, like California. So if you have those process processes in your community, in your state, I would definitely look at getting your arts advocacy organizations up and running, looking at this, because it is replicable. This can happen in other states. It's not just a California phenomenon. And I believe that there are interests right now looking at it in some other states as well. And NAFME will most likely be involved in getting the word out about how this is going in California.
That's exciting. That's exciting. Great. You said the word plan a number of different times talking about Prop 28, but I want to take a turn because I can remember when I first met you, you showed me a strategic arts plan that you had for your district. And when I looked at it and I looked at even how the final product looked on paper, I said, this is as good as I've seen districts do, not just for a single subject area, so to speak, but the entire district plan wasn't as good as what you did. And I know you're very involved in strategic planning and developing them and helping other people develop them. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, absolutely. Rick, I think the key in my learning curve about strategic planning came when I was CMEA president-elect here in California. We brought in Russ Sperling, who was our president, and I was president-elect, brought in a facilitator who taught us how, as a board, to strategic plan. And the result was within a year, we had our California CMEA strategic plan that guided our work for many years. And actually, it's been amended over the succeeding presidents, and it's still in process. So all of that work, I would get calls, and you probably got this in Houston, teachers or administrators calling and saying, I have all these problems of dysfunction. How do I fix this? How do I do this? So now my response is, have you created a strategic arts plan? Do you have a vision for the program? Do you have values that you work around? Do you have a mission? Do you have goals written to reach your vision? If you want to be a world-class music education program, how do you do that? You do it through a process of bringing all the stakeholders together in a room and doing a strategic arts plan. So one of the things I'm passionate about in strategic planning is on my weekends, if I can do it, I will work as a consultant with other entities and help them. I've even done it with my church. My church needed to get things kind of organized. So I spent a full Saturday this past July with the church council and members creating a plan to help our church with moving forward. I like this statement. Hope is not a strategy. I often hear band directors complain about, I got this problem or that problem, and I hope that my tubas play better next year. Well, what are you doing specifically to get your tubas to play better next year is my response. And so now when I get these calls, I've done, as you mentioned, I'm very passionate about arts planning. I go in with a team. It may be a mixture of art, music, dance, theater teachers. It may just be music teachers. And they create from the bottom up through a SWOT analysis, identifying strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges, what their profile is in their school district currently and where they want it to go over, say, 3 to 5 years. And then I take back all of that work from a full Saturday and I write the plan for them. And then it's in draft 1, draft 2, et cetera. With the warning, though, that the superintendent and others who are in the district leadership roles, if they have a music supervisor, are going to be the final vetting of the document. So we have all these great ideas we can say to the superintendent in a given district. I'm working with one down in San Diego County right now. We can say, look, this is your team created this plan. This is not top down. They want to do these things for the children. And what can we do to operationalize it? Will you approve this plan? Right. And so that's what strategic arts planning can do. It can give you a roadmap to get the work done to reach your vision of excellence for your students.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I know that there may be a lot of people listening or follow up, watch the replay that you may be getting a phone call, people to say, hey, can you help me get this off the ground? So,
well, even if I can't personally do the facilitation due to my schedule, I know other people who are very capable in the field and I can always get people support. It can happen in a school district of 2 music teachers, or it can happen in a district with 80 music teachers, but you've got to look at the power of that strategic arts planning. I think it's powerful.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what is next for Mike Stone? What's the next big thing? Maybe it's Prop 28, right?
Well, for the next 4 years or so, until I get to the point of, that retirement is going to be here at some point, I'm going to be operationalizing Proposition 28 in my school district. And I'm excited about it, which is I think, important that I keep myself motivated as well. And beyond that, I think, what do I want to do after I retire from the school district? And I think it may be some strategic arts plans, things of that sort, but who knows? I really don't have the answer yet, and I hope I'll have an answer because I plan for retirement when I get to that point. But I really don't know about retirement. I'm a little unsure if I even want to go there, because I love my work. So
Yeah, well, it's very obvious. We really appreciate you spending time with us today. This is called Lunch with Leaders and Legends. So what's on your lunch plan today?
Well, my doctor's put me on a new diet. I'm going to go ahead and call it out here. So I'm going to be having a salad with a lot of proteins.
There you go.
Way to another medical appointment this afternoon. So I'm trying to cut out those, those carbohydrates just go right to my gut here.
They kill you. Yeah, I know they do. Well, we really appreciate you being with us. I hope everybody has realized that Mike is definitely a leader in our field and could potentially be a great resource for you in a number of different areas if need be. A little housekeeping before we close down. My guest next month, hopefully, if nothing gets in the way, it's on his calendar, is Colonel Jason Fettig, of the leader of the Commander Zone Marine Band, and we are so excited to hear his story of leadership. So he'll be with us the first Wednesday of next month, same time. I want to also let people know that coming up in just 2 weeks at Midwest, the Music Administration Collaborative, which this is all a part of as well, the Music Administration Collaborative is going to run 3 sessions at the Midwest Conference. So we would love for you to come and join us at those. Also in the Midwest, in the Consumer booth at Midwest, you can sign up for the Consumer Institute, which is happening this summer. And that's going to be June 11th through the 14th. And I'm going to bring our behind the scenes technical director, Beth Horton, back on, because Beth is all things Town Summer Institute, all things registration, all things information. And so, Beth, let's make sure they get what they need.
Thank you, Rick. We are so excited in our planning stages right now for Consumer Institute. As Rick mentioned, it's going to be June 11th through 14th at Bethel University in Mishawaka, Indiana, where you can join us virtually. And for those of you who are attending Midwest, you can register at the booth with our very own Erin Cole-Steele, Director of Educational Programs. And she'll have a special little gift for you and a $50 off discount, which is pretty spectacular. $50 off our early bird pricing will bring your ticket price down to $199, I think, which is a spectacular deal, I think, for 3.5 days of professional development. Early bird pricing does end on January 1st. So if you're not going to register with us at Midwest, please make sure you put a note in your calendar to get that registration taken care of before prices go up. And then also, because the majority of you guys are music administrators, you guys and gals, and please also consider bringing a couple of your educators along with to Consumer Institute. There's a dedicated track for music administrators that Rick puts together every year, and it's incredible to see the collaboration that goes on in that room. But it's a fantastic place for new educators, for established educators. We have tracks for pretty much every walk of life for our music educators, including a collegiate track and a new teacher track. For those of you who are interested in registering a group of people, please reach out to Erin. Either go meet her in booth 401 at Midwest and she can tell you more about that, or reach out to her via email at ecole@consumer, and I'll put all this information in the chat for you guys as well. But thank you so much. If you have any questions at all about Consumer Institute, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. I'm ehorton@consumer.com. Erin is ecole@consumer.com, or check out our reg page, consumerinstitute.com. Thank you guys so much. Rick, I'll turn it back over to you. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Beth. And Mike, for those of you in California, if you can ever get out to the Consumer Institute, I know it's a long way away, but we do a job fair with students in the Midwest. So as you start looking at hiring all these new positions out in California, you might want to send some folks out and meet some of the college kids. But we'll get to you when that time's right. Again, thank you so much for being here. And I will see you. I know you're not going to be at Midwest, but I'll see you at the Southern California School Band and Orchestra Association in January. So
sounds good, my friend. Pleasure to see you today, and have a great holiday season.
You do the same. Thanks, Mike. All right.